All right. So, again, welcome to Mindful Journeys, navigating young adult mental health and wellness. Our disclaimer is that this information was prepared with funding from SAMHSA through NTAC, and the information that is shared here today is not supported or endorsed by SAMHSA or the Department of Health and Human Services. It is information that is strictly provided by our wonderful facilitator today. So, session security, we do not foresee any issues or anything that we would need to close down this Zoom today. In the event that anything happens for security issues, we will close down the Zoom and we will send out a separate email with a new Zoom link. This is an overview of NTAC. Again, we are the National Training and Technical Assistance Center for Children, Youth, and Family Mental Health. This is a list of our partners. My name is Dr. Tanisha Freeman Foster. I work with NTAC. I serve as the Director for Equitable Products and Services. In addition to working with NTAC, I also work at Change Matrix. And we ask that if you are not already connected, please be sure to go to our website to sign up for our mailing list so that you can receive notices for upcoming events such as this. Our vision is that all children, youth, and families living with and impacted by mental health challenges will have access to the resources, opportunities, and that they need to thrive in a comprehensive and equitable system of care. And so this outlines just a few of the services that we provide. We provide free technical assistance and various services in addition to events like this. So again, if you are not already connected, please connect to our mailing list and visit our website for more information about our services. So following this session, everyone that is on the session will receive a certificate of completion. We will send out also in the email, you will receive a link to view the recording for this session. And in addition to that, you will receive an email that will have a survey. We ask that you please take the time to fill out the survey. It allows us to continue to provide these sessions at no charge. And it also allows us an opportunity to learn about where we can improve, what worked well for you, what would you like to know more about, so we can continue providing enrichment through these types of platforms. So without further ado, I am going to welcome our phenomenal facilitator to today's session. Her name is Dr. Carlia East. Dr. Carlia East is a clinical psychotherapist, empowerment coach, licensed mental health counselor, motivational speaker, and author. She is the founding CEO of Smile Psychology and Associates LLC, which is a clinical practice, and she's also the executive director of Sapphire Woman Pathways, which supports women offenders by providing pathways of counseling, education, community growth. So you will have this slide deck. I will not continue to read it, but I just want you to know that we are in the room with a phenomenal speaker. I know that you will enjoy this presentation today and you will learn a lot. So without further ado, I will stop my sharing and I will turn it over to our presenter for today, Dr. Carlia East. Welcome and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I can hear the round of applause.
Yes, let's give her some virtual applause, everyone.
Right, I got to gas myself up, right?
Yes.
I got to gas myself up on this thing. First of all, good afternoon, everybody. Thank y'all for joining. I know we coming off of lunch, so we're not going to sleep, right? I'm going to help y'all get through the itis as we're processing through this. My whole goal today is to give you all a different perspective than what you're used to getting, all right? I am definitely an outside of the box psychotherapist and clinician. And I feel that we have to tap into the realities and the baselines of what our youth are really dealing with. And lots of those baselines we aren't going to find in these textbooks. Okay. We're going to find these baselines in their communities, in their families, and straight out of their mouths. And so it's super, super vital that we make sure that we understand those components. So with that, I'm going to share my screen to make sure you guys can see my PowerPoint, and then we will go from there. Give me 1 second. All right. Is everybody able to see my power screen? I mean, my slide. All right. Awesome. Okay.
Yes, it's on your view though.
It's on my view.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you can't see this or you can see it?
We can, but it's on your view instead of presenter view.
Ah, okay, hold on one second.
Mhm.
All right. All right, let me try this one more time. Get my life together.
And while we're waiting, if you have not introduced yourself in the chat, please feel free to introduce yourself, your name, your location, and your role.
What about now?
Click on your lower right-hand corner where it has that little slide. Bring your mouse down some more.
Where am I bringing my, I don't know where I'm bringing my mouse.
You see that slide bar in the right-hand corner that says 57%? It says notes. Go bring your mouse down. Bring it down some more.
I'm not seeing what you're seeing.
Okay.
Let me stop sharing. You want to do the PowerPoint?
Yes, I'll do it.
Okay. So
Just let me know when in advance. We thank you all for your patience with this real life technical.
They know we have technical difficulties. So all right, y'all know how stuff go. Y'all know how stuff go. All right, so I'm gonna
Let's go.
Yeah, we go ahead and jump in. So some of the things that we're going to be reviewing today are the myths that we're dealing with when we're talking about youth and the expectations. We're going to do a little bit of icebreakers, understanding the impacts that are happening around our youth, challenges that they are facing as far as their mental health, the signs and the symptoms, those that we know and those that we necessarily don't know about, as well as coping strategies and how to build resilience. Next slide. All right, so let's talk about some of these myths. The first myth that we have is that young adults are too young to experience serious mental health issues. Now, I don't have to ask y'all to raise y'all hands in order for us to understand that that is not indeed the case, right? First of all, we have to look at the fact that just based upon their demographics, right? Their situations, where they're born and raised, their familial connections or disconnections, all of these are going to play a role in their ability to be successful, which means it's going to play a role in the ability of their brains to be impacted by negativity. And so we know as the brain develops in youth, right? It's like a sponge. It's just soaking up this information, from every aspect. And so if a predominant amount or the baseline of information that this youth is receiving is based on neglect, is based on lack of resources, or just lack of parental supervision, or the chaoticness of not necessarily having unconditional love in that space, then absolutely they're going to develop a capacity to be more stressed, more angst, less trust, and thus mental health issues are definitely going to come into play. Just like we look at youth whom have behavioral issues or, we deem as disrespectful or oppositional, in the way that they behave. What we can definitely guarantee is that they weren't born that way, right? There are no necessarily bad seeds, okay? What we have to pay attention to is the journey that this child went on, their development and their mental development. And then that thus is going to let us know what kind of traumas they've experienced and the fact that we know that they need assistance. You are just going through a phase. That's another thing. When I was younger, I went through things like that. This too shall pass. Sounds real comforting. But to a kid who in one aspect is relying on you or family to make sure that they're secure and safe, this too shall pass, or you just going through a phase, doesn't necessarily help them, because they're not just going through a phase. This is actually their reality. The fact that mom or dad are not the traditional, I'm using air quotes here, right? Traditional roles of mom and dad play a significant space in them being able to maintain their balance and who they are as individuals. It also impedes on their ability to identify who they are as individuals. Because when you think about it, some of the baseline folk that we look to help us discover ourselves are our parents. And when those baselines are skewed or are not in the healthiest space, of course, we're going to have a disconnect when it comes to how do I identify even myself. If the two people that created me, I don't connect with them, I don't vibe with them, then who the hell am I? Right? Where do I measure up in this world if I don't even trust or respect the people that created me? And so you can see how there's this deficit that can easily be drawn subconsciously, right? From that kid. And so that plays a huge role in their development. Or we talk about, Erickson's adolescent, sixth stage of development, which is adolescence, which is the who am I stage, right? This is where all of that begins to come into play and into question. It's all in your head. Don't be weak. I will tell you this. I spelled weak the wrong way. That's all right. I will tell you this. Oftentimes in society, we like to utilize mental disparities as sometimes excuses for behaviors, because we've seen the media do that. But we also diminish the power that mental health and wellness has on an individual and them being able to navigate life. Okay, I'll give you a prime example. Oftentimes when I'm working with Christian organizations, we kind of butt heads a little bit because they're like, they just need to pray more, they need to be more faithful. And the question that I ask them is, if I'm dealing with depression, where I'm unable to find happiness, which means that other word that starts with an H called hope, I'm probably going to have a difficult time finding that too, right? How am I supposed to feel like I even know how to pray? How am I supposed to feel that my prayers are even being answered, that I'm praying the right way? Matter of fact, how do I find the motivation or the energy to pray? Do you get what I'm saying? And so we have to bridge this gap that we see that's growing in this concept that you are weak if you're dealing with mental health, or that it is all in your head. And the truth is, no pun intended, it is all in your head. It's absolutely in your head, because this is the space where all of our brilliance resides. This is the space where we hold our secrets. This is the space where we hold our dreams. And so when those things are colliding in a big old web of bubbles, you know what I mean? It's very difficult for a kid or an adolescent who hasn't had all the life lessons that we as adults have had, or haven't had the opportunities to overcome some things so they can look back and reflect and see that they can make it. It's a tangled web, and it's difficult for them to see their way out of it. Okay. You're overreacting. Suck it up. Now, we know our youth can be dramatic. Don't get me wrong. And we also know that they can be lazy, and that at sometimes they really, can do the most when they're expected to do the very least. But when we're talking about their health and their wellness, we can never be so aware and in tune to youth and their behaviors that we don't offer up the opportunity for our own assessment to be challenged, right? Who am I, seriously, as a clinician, as a PhD, and all these elemental P's behind my name? Who am I to tell anyone that their trauma isn't traumatic to them, that their hurt wasn't painful, that it's not impacting the way they feel or how they sleep or how they navigate? That's not for me to say. Any emotion that comes up more than once is a trigger. It's just that simple, especially if it's something that's unwanted. So when they are reacting to their pain and their struggles, they may not be reacting in an organized way, right? But that's because they don't have the tools to know how to react in an organized way. So let's make sure we're being forever mindful that their projections and their reactions, albeit extra and, bright as they may be sometimes, are their only ways of getting their voices out, is the only way that they have or feel like they can express. And so we want to be mindful of some of those stereotypes that we carry, right, about their behaviors. Okay. And then the last thing is, everything stems from childhood. Well, I am a therapist, and so most stuff does go to childhood. I'm not even gonna lie. But there have been some major shifts that I think we all can attest to in the past 3 years, right? Some major shifts. We looking at our family members differently. We checking that friends ain't friends like we thought they were. Some of them a little off, right? We unfollowing people on Facebook. Like we're making changes and shifts as adults in our own space of who we gravitate to, who we let in our space, who we don't let in our space. We're resetting our boundaries and sticking to them. And this is because of stuff that's happening right now. Things that have happened to us in the past, 2 to 3 years or the past 24 hours. And so we don't want to assume that every trauma that our youth comes with comes from childhood. Many kids have very healthy parents and healthy situations. However, the susceptibility and the sensitivity of that child's chemistry, because they still are an individual despite their DNA combination. Because of that, something has hit them a little bit more than it hit somebody else. Something made them feel like they did not fit in, did not belong, did not matter, or were wrong or off in their perceptions and the way that they were thinking. And so we have to be mindful that sometimes the road that we need to travel down and the things that we need to dig up from them may not be the parents, but maybe what's going on with them in school. It has to do with their peers. It might have to do with siblings. It might have to do with something that they saw on social media and they related to and it hit a nerve for them. So this is all about us checking these myths and being able to think outside of this box of, therapeutic behavioral health and interventions and get to, the 10 toes down kind of grassroots prospects. Okay, we can keep moving. Next slide. Thank you. All right, so I can't see your faces or see your hand views because of my view, but I'm going to assume that everybody has been stressed on some level, right? I would ask that you put a 1 in the comments if you could. Thank you. Because I'm like, me, I've been stressed. I mean, guys, we're coming off the holidays, okay? We like these holidays where we're supposed to be merry and bright. How many of us were like, okay, I got to balance this? Put a 2 if you were trying to balance your life during the holidays. I got to figure this out. I kind of want to go over here, but I don't know if I want to stay over here for too long because they be with the nonsense. Like we're really trying to figure stuff out. So we know stress is something that we're all experiencing, right? But I think it's important that we also understand that stress is the gateway for everything else. It really is. When you think about your physiological impacts of mental health, it starts by stress. When you think about, anxiety turns into panic, can turn into agoraphobia, you get what I'm saying? All these things are like a domino effect and it all starts in stress. So we know we're all going to be stressed. Got it. How we manage, how we handle, right? How we accept and acknowledge some of that stress. Because your body doesn't know the difference between good or bad stress. It just knows that you're stressed. So you can be stressed because of something really awesome happening in your life, like, you're getting a raise or an opportunity, or you can be stressed because, you got a bill coming up or you're not going to be able to go somewhere. But we're all dealing with stress. The key that I want us to take away from this stress piece is it's not about the stress. It's about how we manage it, how we acknowledge it, and how we deal with it. Okay. Let me ask this question. Who has never allowed external stereotypes to bother you? I see nothing in the chat. Who's never allowed, right? But who in this room has ever felt that they were impostoring on some level? Who in this room, put a 1 in the chat, has ever thought that you were not measuring up based upon the environment that you were in, or that someone gave you a label and you totally subscribe to it, right? We all have done these things, subscribe to these labels, allowed external stereotypes to bother us. These are common practices that take place every day, right? Now, we know why people throw out labels and throw out stereotypes. First of all, they are, I would say, intimidated, oftentimes by maybe your strength or their lack of. Maybe there's things in you that they see that they wish they had in themselves, and the only way that they can feel great within themselves is to put a box around you, okay? So I'm going to give you guys a pointer because this is not just about us understanding youth, but I also want to give you guys some nuggets because you're going to be working with the youth, so you got to be good so they can be good. So let me tell you about this. When it comes to the stereotypes and the terms that you are given, this is one thing that I teach my clients every day. Embrace them. I did. I just totally said embrace the stereotype, okay? I embrace the fact that I am called aggressive. Who in here is shocked by that? I don't think anyone is, okay? I am totally called aggressive all the time. And I used to cower and feel emotionally stagnant because of being called aggressive. You know, yes, I'm out loud and proud in who I am. I am very clear about my position and where I stand, right? I don't mince words. I don't have time to placate bull. I'm going to tell you like it is. With love, I'll check you and then I'll hug you. That's how I roll, okay? And so when I tell you that I've often been called aggressive, and I have allowed that definition to challenge and change the way I operate, the way I maneuver, the way I respond, and the way I act. And you know what the outcome of that was? The individuals that called me aggressive, they still call me aggressive, y'all. They still thought I was damn aggressive. They didn't care that I had cleaned it up and tried to get it together and been better and trying to do good. They didn't care about that. They still called me aggressive. What I had to realize was, wait a minute. I'm not aggressive because aggression is the act of anger. I'm not even angry. I said, no, I'm not available with a smile, right? I'm not aggressive. What I had to realize was I was subscribing to a definition that was wrong in the first place. I was subscribing to their definition of me. So instead of me subscribing to their definition, since we just define stuff the way we want to, let me create my own definition. So now when a person steps to me and says, oh, you're so aggressive, I go, you know what I am? I am passionate, I'm humble, I'm 10 toes down, I'm loyal, and I don't play about my words. My word is my bond, and I mean what I say, and I'm gonna go hard in it for anybody else. Please, thank you for acknowledging how aggressive I am. And please let everybody else know that I'm aggressive too. Tell your people. I hope some of y'all laughing at me right now, because that's how I feel about it. I really do. We have got to stop subscribing. If we want to help our youth be independent, if we want to help them stand on their toes and not allow society to dictate them, not allow their circumstances to determine their opportunities, not allow their financial means to determine their ability to have access and reach, we've got to learn how to stop subscribing to the nonsense, okay? And define it for ourselves. Because as I own aggression, that word no longer has power over me. I no longer have to be silent or quiet or calm it down or minimize myself. You get what I'm saying? So I wanted to give y'all that, right, to take with you, okay? And then the last little introduction icebreaker is, who is always positive, right? I'm not always positive. Now, I'm one of those glass half full people, optimism. I'm a Libra, by scale. So, I got to keep a balance here. But when I tell you, it's okay to be in your feelings. We have to give not only ourselves permission to have a funky day and to be in our feelings and to not want to people. Okay, how many of us just don't feel like peopling sometimes? We have to allow ourselves those moments, those days, and also respect the fact that just because they are youth and they are younger, they may not have experienced everything that we have. That's all the more reason why they also have to understand that it's okay that they're not happy and cheery and positive every day. When things happen to them, that's an impact on who they are. They're allowed to be sad. You're allowed to be sad. Matter of fact, you're allowed to be pissed off and angry, honey. But the key is, don't live there. We can visit. We can visit Sad Avenue, Pissed Off Lane. I know he didn't circle, right? We can visit all those places, but we can't live there. We can't live there, but we have to give ourselves the opportunity to take respite, recognize and acknowledge that we're allowed to feel that way, okay? In the words of Beyonce, we didn't wake up like that. Something happened, okay? And then be able to move forward. Next slide. All right. So when we're understanding the impacts that our youth are dealing with, the first thing that we have to focus on is the transition. Transitions are huge. And I think that that's a word that we kind of have all used a lot more lately. Who in the chat put a 1 if you know you've used the word pivot or transition? A lot more. in the past few months than you ever have before. Many of us are dealing with our own pivots and transitions, right? Guess what? Our youth are dealing with those transitions as well. Those transitions are, we have what we commonly call as, childhood to adolescence. We go through Erikson stages of development, right? So we've got, childhood, adolescence, young adulthood, right? We have all those markers. We have puberty as a marker. We have, female menstruation as a marker, all these types of things. These are very well documented markers. What about the marker of my mom and dad are no longer in the home? What about the marker of I'm having to relocate? Or I lost my brother or sister? Or I don't have, enough resources? Or I see my parents not eating, but I'm eating? Or I have everything I need, but my parents' attention. They don't, they're in the room, but they're not in the room, right? So all of these different things, right? Exactly. Addictions. How about siblings that grow up and move on, and that was like that kid's bestie? Okay. These are all different transitionary periods for youth. And then when you think about the fact that kids develop at different stages and that they reach these milestones at different times, you may have the youth that may feel that he or she is not developing fast enough because everybody else in their space is. Or you have those that are tall and are developed and are automatically assumed to have adult reasoning, okay, and adult logic and adult responsibilities, but they can't even keep up with their own bodies because they're transitioning. So there's so many different transitions that our youth deal with every day. We have to look beyond the ones that are textbook and the ones that we kind of see play out from a scholastic view or a familial view. We got to look deeper into this person, into how he or she is feeling about themselves, right? Their self-esteem and growth. Academic pressures are definitely huge. I am also a college professor. And so I get quite a few students that come into my psychology class first year. Some of the baseline things, especially my collegiate students, they're still in high school, they're so nervous about. They don't quite, they have a sense of freedom, but they still need accountability. They're nervous and they think that, all they're thinking about is that my grades have to be the only thing that make it. And we have some youth that are so focused on their grades, they have no well-rounded extracurricular personalities whatsoever. How many of y'all know brilliant kids with no social skills? Put a 2. Brilliant kids, no social skills. Now we know COVID has something to do with it. I mean, it made all of us kind of awkward, at a certain point, but we definitely do have youth that are so focused on the grades that they keep their nose in the books. They haven't even explored who they are as a person, and they are having panic attacks, right? They are literally suffering from depression. They are engaging in all kinds of drug use in order to maintain this straight A momentum or to make sure they get everything done. And that is suffocating them. It suffocates their creativity, which they need, and it suffocates their ability to find balance. What about social expectations? Society kind of sucks, y'all. I'm sorry. It really does. Like, as an adult, I've had to do a little bit of extra prayer meditation every morning before I put my feet on the ground, just so I can deal with the extras of today, right? Just the extra in people. We are living in a society, okay, where individuals feel that it's okay to speak disrespect freely, right? That's the kind of society that we live in. And on top of that, the catch-22 of it all is that the aggressive girl like me, you expect me not to say nothing? And you say the things that you say, or not to feel some type of way as to offend your freedom of speech? This is the kind of tennis match that we as adults are emotionally dealing with back and forth with people that we come to work with, people that we're in the communities with. What do you think our kids are dealing with? I mean, seriously, lots of messages and images comes from social media, comes from, them watching videos or them watching videos of people playing videos. Don't know what that's about. It's a thing, right? They're all going through these expectations of being perfect, being the perfect girl, being seen, not heard, being a masculine male, whatever that means. All of these archaic definitions, parents trying to live through their kids and trying to, project their concerns on them. You have their social media groups, them feeling like they're not measuring up with that. There's so much. And when we add all of those influences on our children, adolescents on a regular basis, and then we take away them having that one common sense voice, human being that says, I get you. Like, I get that. And giving them a space to vent, we remove their opportunity. We remove their safe space. We remove their ability to grow and learn through this process. It doesn't matter how outlandish the things that they may say or how you feel that, oh, that's kind of wild. The point is, we rather have TMI than no MI. Do y'all hear what I'm saying? We rather have too much information than no information at all. And understanding some of the pressures that our youth are under helps us to check ourselves so that we're not adding to that pressure, so that we allow them that space to be free, to show up how they want to show up. If I have students in my classroom, the first thing I tell them is, let me know what name you want to be called. Matter of fact, write it down so I can change it on the roll. Now, this is just not for my trans kids. You know what I mean? This is also for the kid that got a name from a parent that they don't like. They may not like their name, or the parent, their parent may have been a negative person to them and called them that name while they beat them or made them eat oatmeal every day, or, never or ignored them or dismissed them. So if the name that I'm calling you by makes you feel uncomfortable, how do you think your efforts towards that are going to go? This way. So I want to make sure that I create a safe space for every child, right? Every adult and person in my space, because we never know where those issues may lie. And sometimes it lies just within a name, right? Just little minor things, okay? Identity formation. Okay, so I kind of talked about that, how social media plays a role in how they develop, peers, isolation, lack of awareness. Now, we know that social media has its positives and its negatives, right? There's a great opportunity for you to be able to use social media for the positive. And I think here is where the issue lies. I think we spend a lot of time talking about correct use of social media, and we spend a lot of time researching the negative impacts. But what about, all the positive impacts that are associated with social media? Just like I can send a derogatory message out, I can send a positive one out. Just, you know what I mean? There's the opportunity for me to speak and for me to have an opinion and for me to have a presence in my social media. And what we will find is that our youth, that's the one place that they're the most vulnerable, because they tend to share a lot of who they are on their social media profiles. And so I think we have to start looking at them, but not in a judgmental way, but in a gathering information so I can reach this kid and approach him or her on the level that they're on. If I am working with youth, the first thing I do is try to find out what their social media pages look like, because I want to know the type of music they listen to. Why? Because music is the soundtrack of our lives. Put a 2 in the chat if you know a song come on right now. You knew where you were. You know what happened. It gets you in the mood. Some of y'all got a whole playlist for when you need to calm down so that you don't go to jail, right? Like, music is everything. And so when we think about how powerful music can be and how it impacts us and gets us, music helps us to learn to study. It helps our short-term information travel to long-term information. It helps us to retrieve on tests. It helps us to deal with stress and anxiety. It helps your liver function. Music helps your digestive system. Do y'all hear me? There are different beta waves, especially C beta waves, that help your body to process stress and to relieve and to let go. So music is a foundational principle. So imagine you have a kid that you're not vibing with. Okay. and I'm gonna use a stereotypical kid. He's rough. He comes from, you know, maybe a socioeconomic situation that's challenged. You know, he doesn't really trust anybody. And here you are trying to reach him. You're the fifth person trying to reach him, and he's sitting in there like this. Y'all know the look. How many of y'all had one of these with the legs, you know, like this, slumped in the chair? Right? We know what that looks like, right? They looking at you like, here she come, here he come with the same thing that they had before. What if you pull out a lyric from their artist? I don't care if it's Tim McGraw, Miley Cyrus, Lil Yachty, Lil Webby, all the Lils, no matter who it is, right? What if you pulled out a song and said, hey, when Ross talked about these lyrics here, okay? Or when Beethoven wrote this sonnet, because some of our kids are into music, so you got to reach them where they're at. What do you think they meant by that? What's the vibe you get? You know what I'm saying? What's the vibe you get when you come in, when you listen to that music? How does that empower you? You will be surprised at the information that they will share with you, because now you're on their level. Now you just reached to them. So now I have something I can talk about. So yeah, we're talking about lyrics, but what am I also doing, y'all? I'm getting in their heads. So while we're talking about what this song means, we're probably going to start talking about why you like that artist, and then what attracts you to that person, which means you're going to share with me some things about you. You're letting me in without you knowing you're letting me in, because I knocked. Do y'all understand? You knocked. I didn't barge in. I didn't bust in like I know you. I'm adult. I've worked with youth. I know how youth act. No, I knocked on the door and say, hey, let's rap about this real quick. Sometimes it's the easiest, simplest things that you can use. And then I also do a trade-off. So I'll share a song with them that I like and that pulls me, and why it gives me power and strength. We may get together 3 times after that and only talk about music. But music becomes the baseline of our relationship. It becomes how we can share. And so now when this kid comes to me, now I'm playing music as they walk in the door. So immediately when they cross my threshold, they're like, place of safety. So there are so many things that you all can do outside of the box, right, to reach our kids, and music is one of them, okay? What about trauma? I've talked about all sorts of trauma. We know traumas, but I want to say this about trauma. Trauma is based on the individual, not the circumstances, not the environment, and not the others, okay? Trauma is about the person. All of us have gone through something traumatic in our lives, right? And my prayer is that we're working through it or have gone through it and we're good. But think about when that trauma first hit you, no matter what it was. Think about how it felt for someone to tell you that's not a big deal. You should be over that by now. I'll give you guys one. How many of you have dealt with a loss? Put a 1 in the comments if you've ever dealt with a loss. Now, I want those of you that have dealt with that loss, the person that came to you and said, you're not past that, it's been 6 months. How many of y'all had that person? Put a 2. If you had someone come to you and expect you to be over it or through it or past it, or you should have forgiven by now, you should have healed by now, you should have released by now. They don't get to tell you how to grieve. They don't get to tell you how to release, how to exhale, how to breathe, because they weren't there when you loved. Do y'all hear me? We can't tell somebody else what's traumatic for them, because we don't know the space that they're coming from with that trauma. We don't know what their baseline and their happiness was before that trauma took place. And even though to us, it may not seem like a big deal, to them, it could be everything. And what we should care about is what it means to them, not what it means to us. Because you have all been in a space where your feelings were put on a timeline and you did not like it. So we are definitely not going to place trauma on a timeline for our youth, because there may be some things that they need to work through first. Traumas, sometimes you gotta piecemeal them. You know what I mean? You gotta pick out things, work on them individually, and then move forward. You just can't tackle the whole picture at one time. But I want us to think about that. And if you all have anyone that is saying to you, you should be through that, you should be over that, you let them know, I will get through when I work through. Hello? I will get through when I work through. And that's that. Next slide. All right, so here are some common mental health challenges, and we know these. We've talked about adjustment issues, changes and shifts in familial patterns, also relationships, people coming and going, people passing away. We've talked about that. You're welcome. What about anxiety? So this is big. So I have anxiety. I was originally diagnosed with testing anxiety when I was in college. Who knew? And so that was something that I definitely had to overcome. A lot of our youth have testing anxiety with the FAST, which is the new state testing that they have in different spaces. For here in Florida, it's called the FAST. Other places you guys have your state testing. When that comes up, because kids are like freaking out about it, and their parents are freaking out too, right? It's completely anxiety ridden. The key to our kids and helping them through the anxiety is really about helping them to understand the power that they have. So for instance, I have a child, he's 8 years old. In third grade is when they start counting this state exam. I was like, what the hell? Third freaking grade? Are you freaking kidding me? So my kid knows that this test is really important. Guess who starts having anxiety about the test? My kid. I had to teach him to reframe. And this is one of the words that I use all the time, is reframing, because how you choose to look at something totally will designate how your body and how your mental will respond. And so what I reminded my son is, I said, you know how you playing Minecraft and you running through all the places and building houses and beating people, or Roblox or whatever he's playing. I said, this test is nothing but a big old Minecraft, big old Roblox test. I said, you are there to show up and show out and win. It's a competition. By me spinning it and giving him a reference point that he could relate to, he was able to go to that test. The first time he took it, he made a 1, y'all. I ain't gonna lie, he made a 1, but my baby was supposed to make a 3. Lord, he made a 1, and he gifted. But the second time he took it, he made a 4. Perspective, reframing, switching it so that he sees that this is an opportunity for me to shine. This is not oh my God, I'm being tested, I'm so nervous, they're gonna judge me. No, this is the opportunity for me to walk in and be like, look at what I know, look at what I learned, look how smart I am, look how brilliant I am, look how talented I am. We've got to gas up our kids so that they learn how to take their anxiety and reframe it. Another tool that I use is, I often will tell my youth and my adults, because we have all anxiety too, honey, your anxiety is necessary. Those are your spidey senses telling you, hello, alert, 911, let me pay attention to the situation. Something's about to change. Something's about to shift. Something just walked into the room. That's what your anxiety does. Anxiety doesn't have to be something that we run from. It could be something that we love to foster, that we appreciate, because it lets us know that there's a red flag in the room. There's something going on. And so just reframing how anxiety looks can help us own it better. So when I begin to reframe my anxiety and how my anxiety lets me know that there's something coming, there's a shift in the air, that I need to be more alert. Instead of me thinking that anxiety meant run or flee, it allowed me to have better control over my anxiety when it hit, which allowed my perception of anxiety to change, which meant that I wasn't having these huge breakdowns and sweats because of it. I was actually able to embrace it and grow from it. Depression. One of the things that I think we have to allow our kids to be is in their feelings, and not be so quick to necessarily say they're depressed, but to help them understand that they are feeling emotions associated with depression, and that they don't have to live in that space. Folks have the right to feel feels when things happen. So if we're able to let them know, hey, this feeling that you're having right now, totally, I'd be feeling the same way too, man. That's a lot. Like, that's a lot to deal with. I would totally take that. And then remind them that they don't have to live there. Remind them of the times that they weren't sad. Remind them that there will be moments that they won't be sad, right? And then with that depression also comes the grief piece. Grief can sometimes be harder to manage, right? I mean, it's hard for adults to deal with loss, let alone a young person or a child dealing with loss. But the one thing that I tell people all the time, no matter what age they are, whether your uncle, your mama, whomever, I said, baby, that person was more than a few dates on the beginning and a few dates on the end. They were everything in between. Do you remember that last holiday y'all had together? Yeah, what y'all did. Oh, da 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 da. And then we're able to reminisce about how funny that was, or, you know, what that moment was. So many times society tells us that we need to only focus on this time and this time. We can't. We got to stop posting, oh, this the anniversary of what have been my mama birthday, and it's the anniversary of what have been my mama death. What about the anniversary when she made that bomb ass bundt cake? What about that anniversary? What about you putting up a memory of the time that you guys went out and danced, or when you went to a theme park together, or when she shared you that secret recipe that don't nobody else know but you know, and now you ain't gonna share it with nobody because you got clout on them. Like, we've got to teach ourselves to celebrate the moments in between, and we've got to educate our youth to celebrate those moments in between. And also letting us and our youth know that those stages of grief, right? Depression, acceptance, you know, bargaining, denial, all of that, guess what? We're going to be going through that a little bit. We're going to go through it. Y'all hear what I say? We're going to go through it until we work through it. And allowing those youth to know, hey, I know you're feeling really good today. Tomorrow you might feel funky, but that's okay. That happens, kiddo. You feel your little funkiness, but remember that you felt good today. And that's all we can do. We can't tell them, oh, you have to stop being sad. Would your mama want you to live that way? That doesn't help. We have to focus on, hey, where you're feeling right now is fair. But do you want to stay in this space forever? What do you want to do? What memories do you want to take with you? Okay. Substance issues. We know these often fall into a situation due to all the latter things that I just discussed, right? So we have all these other societal pressures, familial pressures, losses, shifts and changes, identity formations, school expectations. Substances are used as an escape, you know, experimental opportunity at first, and then, oh, this makes me feel good, or this takes the edge off, or this numbs me out, or I don't have to deal with this crap anymore. These are all things that kids are dealing with, but the substances that we have to start being a bit more aware of are more of the, not the psychotropic ones. I mean, not the street ones, but the psychotropic ones. Because those are the ones that kids are getting. They're getting their mom's Xanax prescription and their dad's Zoloft prescription, or, you know, whatever the heck. And they're crushing them up and snorting them and using them for all these things. They're borrowing their friend's Adderall prescription and using that to help them get finals or midterms or what have you. This is the thing. We can't sit here and just play this role of, you know, persecuting a child when they may use a substance. We need to figure out what drove them to use the substance in the first place. Why was that substance even attractive? Matter of fact, what did that substance do for you? Like, what was the vibe? Did you enjoy it? How did you enjoy it? Ask those questions. You're not increasing likelihood of use. You're brainstorming other positive things that you can put in place of that said drug and then allow them to move forward. Okay. And next we have PTSD, psychosis, and suicidality. Now, post-traumatic stress disorder, I'm not going to really get into that hardcore because we're a little bit out of time. I have a tendency to give more details than I need to. But we also have kind of covered, right? Trauma, post-trauma comes out of that, how to help them heal. But the psychosis and the suicidality, anytime you hear any child talk about they just, you know, suicide, I want you to first of all acknowledge that they feel that way without judgment. And then also, this is what I ask my youth. I go, do you want to die, or do you just want to pause stuff for a while? Do you just wish things could just pause for a second so you can catch up with yourself so that you can breathe? And many of them are like, yes, they just need things to pause. So then my mission becomes, how do I create pause in their life, right? How do I create an opportunity for them to have space so that they can breathe? Because they've told me what they need. Death is not really what they want. That just is the go-to because that's what people say. But what I really want is for just things to pause for a second so I can catch up, right? So now I can create systems that help them to pause. Okay, spaces, give them tools and strategies of how to time out, give them a countdown, regimen to use. You know what I mean? And then with the psychosis, the key to that is asking the question so that we know what they're hearing, what they're seeing, and then asking them, who sounds familiar to you? Does that voice that you hear sound familiar? Does the person that you're seeing, do they look familiar to you? Because oftentimes when our youth are experiencing psychosis, it's usually associated with a real person that they have had some interactions with negatively that imprints on the brain. And then that becomes the person that they may see or hear or feel during their psychosis. And as long as we're able to have these conversations with them, which are positive symptoms, right? A negative symptom would be them being catatonic or non-responsive. But as long as we're able to get these positive outcomes from them, there's a conversation that we can continue to have. Now we can investigate, okay, so this is what you're hearing. Where have you heard that before? Who said that? What's your relationship with that person? Now we're getting to the root of where the psychosis is even stemming from and the people that it's associated with, which means those relationships probably need exploring too. So it's kind of like a Pandora's box once you open it up, but it's really fascinating, exciting, and healing to go through it because you are giving these kids depth to deal with the many layers of their problems. Next slide. Signs and symptoms that we go through, and I think we've talked about some of these. There are changes in our kids' mood as we see them. They may show lack of interest in certain things or may become sometimes fixated on one thing. And so we got to be careful of that. Just because we don't see them losing interest doesn't mean that them becoming fixated on something is still not a warning. They could be using that fixation to avoid what's really going on with them, right? Exactly. Any overindulgences, thank you, would be the things that you want to definitely check into. Appetite, we know these things, higher appetite, lower appetite, or maybe they may decide to only eat certain things that could be diving into maybe how they feel about their bodies or, other health in general. So you want to dive into that. Inability for them to focus or memory. What I try to do is, you give your kid 3 things, they only remember like one of them, or the absent-minded professor type of vibe. They just can't seem to stay on top of things when they normally would be. Then definitely they're not slacking. There may be something in their brain that's vacillating and cycling so frequently that they can't keep up with the things that they need to because this trauma keeps coming in and interrupting their short to long-term memory, right? So we want to figure that out. Emotional changes, fear, worry, hopelessness, no motivation, tearful, facial expressions are more dejected, elongated, lack of eye contact. We know that for sure. And just lack of, being participatory in things that they would normally be. And of course, physical changes, we know sleep changes, but we also can see, depression can have a look, right? Elongated shoulders, curvature of the spine. They may complain of aches and pains, migraine headaches. Their stomach may be upset. All of these things are associated with emotional stirring, right? Which in the brain, which presents emotional enzymes in the stomach and the body, which makes us feel sick. And so, any of these different signs and symptoms that we come across, just ask the question. And again, don't be accusatory. Be like, hey, kiddo, what's up? Like, hey, I noticed this and that. And I know sometimes I do it too. And when I do it, I'm feeling like this. So just wonder if you kind of having the same feels I'm feeling. There's never a problem with you as a professional exposing the fact that you get sad. That's called humanity. We can't be so professional that we forget to be human because these kids want human beings. They don't want AIs, okay? Next slide. Now, coping strategies that we teach our kids, of course, to ask for help. We know not every kid is going to ask for help. So sometimes we have to go up in there and approach. And then I talked about different ways you can approach based upon their sports, based upon music, find these icebreakers. Help your kids build a support squad. Ask them, who's your crew? Who's your people? Who do you know you can go to and tell your darkest secrets, no matter how trifling they may be, and they go have your back? That's your squad, because you want your kids to know that they have other people that they can talk to in their circle about things. You want them to build that support group so they can support each other in that space. Self-care is very important. Teaching your youth about meditation music, low volume frequencies, chakras, rhythms B and C are important, right? Maybe having some of that music playing. I play soft music during sessions, and in the classroom, I play lo-fi hip hop, particularly lo-fi, L-O-F-I, hip hop during my sessions and during class. It has an underlining beta wave that allows for relaxation, and they tell me way all their information. So that's what I need. It's just a calming underlining tone. And that's a part of self-care that can be so easy to put in place. It also is helpful. A self-care practice is having the kid understand that they can go outside and put their sand, their feet in the sand, or their feet in the grass, and just take a minute to step outside of their situation, helping them create a safe space, even if it's on their front porch. So being creative with that, right? Mindfulness and meditation is key. What I'll tell students is, if you can't think of a meditation, find a musical artist and you love what they say, and let's map out what that means and create a structure of get up and get out and get something from that, right? And let's build on that. That helps them to feel like they're a part of their own motivation. And it's a cool activity because they get to talk about their favorite artists, which allows them to feel noticed, especially for kids who maybe don't feel like they fit in situations, okay? Creating routines are always good for kids and for us as well, but the routine is really about helping them to know that they are accomplishing goals every single day, no matter what, okay? And then I got a rapid fire. So of course, setting realistic goals. I already talked about them getting outside. And then not only us saying that we're proud of them and we appreciate them, thank you, but also them being able to practice gratitude themselves for the fact that they exist, because their existence matters. Do I have more slides? Am I done? Where am I? Do I have another one?
Nope.
Nope, that was it. Won't he do
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much. That has been fire.
it?
And so we are at time. I don't know if you have a few minutes if someone has questions, or you prefer for them to put it on the survey afterwards. I know we're at time. So thank you to each of you for attending. And again, at the end of
Thank
today's
y'all.
session, yes, let's give Dr. East a round of a virtual applause for today. And I see it in the chat. I see people saying they need to start every morning with you. This is wonderful.
Listen, you guys, I am here for you as adults, just like I'm here for the youth. But hit a sister up if y'all need me. If you need to have let me have a coming to Jesus session with her to get my mind right. That is what I'm here for. For speaking engagements, you guys call me, I am there.
Yes, love it. Again, at the end of this session, you will receive your certificate of completion. You will receive a survey. If this has been fire for you as it has been for me, put that in the survey, because we would love to bring Dr. Carlia back. Also, we will include her contact information in the slide deck that goes out. So if you have any questions, you can follow her on LinkedIn. You can contact her via email, via phone. We'll be sure to include that in the information that goes out. Awesome. Thank you all so much. And if you have any questions also, please include those in the survey, because we can use those questions or things that come up for you as you're working with young people to create a second presentation that Dr. Carlia will lead.
I had a blast.